Hello, everyone. It's Shane Kanto, your Wasteland reviewer, and welcome to Development Hell Podcast. And it's our movie club back at it again for our month's film that we're going to be talking about is Memento. So I'm going to let everybody give their basic thoughts about Memento. And there we go. Mine's literally right over there. So I think most of us I think it'd be cool for us to talk a little bit about how we experienced Memento for the first time, and then talk a little bit about what our initial thoughts are before we dig deep into this very complex and very intriguing film. So, who would like to go first?
I'll go first.
Quicker than my class. Usually I have to stare for like five
Yeah,
more minutes at them. Go ahead, Alex.
that's right. Yeah. Well, that's interesting. The first time I experienced it, I don't remember the first year that I saw this film. It might have been sometime in the 2000s, between 2000 and 2010. I always remember being confused, but being really just compelled by what was happening on the screen. Guy Pearce is amazing in this movie. And by the way, he's in so much of the movie. This goes to show, like, between director and actor, it's kind of like Ed Norton and Fight Club. Like, he's in so much of the movie. That takes a lot of work. But my first impression of it, I just remember being like confused, but I wanted to know what was going on. I think I was wise enough to like kind of have an idea as the years went on. And I watched, this is probably like the third or fourth, I would say probably the fourth time I watched the movie. Now I have a much better understanding. There's still a little bit of uncertainty, but after some of the videos I watched on YouTube today, I'm starting to realize that maybe some of that uncertainty is intended. And so we can talk about that as to what things mean and who did what. There's a lot of question marks hanging out there that I think initially my first couple of viewings, I thought, oh, I'm just dumb and I can't answer these questions. Now I kind of feel like I think there's supposed to be questions. There's some stuff that you can answer, and then I think there's some stuff that you can't quite answer by the time the film wraps up. And so I just I really dug it. And I'll get more into my thoughts on Nolan and Nolan films and how this film relates to that later on. But the plot device is just it's just fantastic. His brain is so cerebral, and I wish I was as smart as Christopher Nolan. Sometimes he's incredibly such a cerebral thinker, and he's able to bring his creativity in with that. A lot of directors can't do that. It's very, 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 very talented.
And at sometimes he's just flexing it. Look at Tenet.
Yeah, I was
Replay
gonna.
even tells you, like,
I will bring that up. Yeah.
don't think about it, just feel it. I'm like, don't say that to me. Vinnie, how about you? How did you experience Memento for the first time?
I don't remember.
Okay. What are your initial thoughts about Memento?
That's a more authentic answer.
But yeah. So this was the first time I watched it. Like, I've only watched it two other times before this. My first time was senior year of high school. Then the second time was when we watched it in film club. And so when I first watched it in high school, like I was, it was around when I was like 17 or 18. So like, like my parents were, like they were allowing me to watch like more R-rated movies at that point. So because like with the age and everything. But yeah. So I remember Memento being one of the first movies that introduced me to like non-linear storytelling and just showing me like the different ways a narrative could unfold throughout the movie. And like going into it, obviously at first I was confused with what was happening, because you have like the colored sequences moving backwards and then the black and white sequences moving forward. So it took a while to like get into the groove of the movie. But then once I started to understand what was going on, I was compelled, because I was thinking to myself, well, like I have never seen a movie. I've never seen a movie tell its story like this before. And this wasn't this wasn't the first Nolan movie I've seen because you know before this I had seen Batman Begins and Batman Begins and The Dark Knight, but I won't say much else. I'll wait until we discuss it. But I'll just say that watching Memento, it was just like it was interesting to see like where I know this wasn't his first movie. He had like the one movie before Memento. I can't remember what it was called, but that's it. Yeah.
Yep.
But it was just interesting to see how Nolan started out in filmmaking and what eventually led him to getting like these bigger budget productions like offered to him. So yeah, in short, I loved the movie, and I'll talk more about it once we get into the discussion.
Yeah, Following's like an hour 10, hour 15-minute film, and it's all in black and white, and it's very much a Nolan cerebral puzzle box of a plot kind of story as well. I love Christopher Nolan, and I have all of his movies, so one of my favorite directors. Now, Matt, how about you? What was your first experience with Memento?
Yeah, so just like Vinnie, it was my senior year of high school, in English class, and I remember my teacher. We didn't need like permission slips, whatever. We were all like 17, which still sounds weird because it's a radar movie. I don't know, whatever. But he showed us the movie, but before he hit play, he described it. He said it's this movie that, or basically, you look like you take like a regular story, and then imagine just like chopping the whole thing up, and then kind of like playing with that. And you have to be sort of like on the ride, and have to be okay with maybe there might be things that are a little bit confusing, or you're gonna just pay attention. You're gonna have a good time, but you have to pay attention. And immediately when I heard that, because I had seen like, what was that? What was that movie? Pulp Fiction, like a year before, and I thought he was talking about Pulp Fiction. So when he said that, I was thinking, like as he was talking, I was in my seat, like, oh crap. And my eyes went up from like my phone where it should have been in the first place. But but I started paying attention. He was like, Memento. And then I was, oh, okay, well, I never heard that before. And then we watched the movie, and this movie is fantastic. And then like Carrie-Anne Moss is in it, and it's like, whoa, okay, Trinity. Like watching this movie now, it makes me think about the first time I watched it, because when I first watched it, I thought it was so awesome, and the cast was really interesting because like two people from The Matrix, that's cool, and like Guy Pearce is, just like it seemed like he's just so fit for the role. I can't really think of anybody that I could like replace him with. You know what I mean? Because he's like every man, but then he's also brutal, like very much. I don't know. He's like a lot of stuff. But now when I watched it, and I've seen it a couple of times before. I saw it in film club in college, but this is the first time I ever like really thought about it. This guy's not a good guy. Like he's like really, really not a good guy. He's your protagonist, but he's not your hero. Like he's like actually not a good guy. And even before the movie ends, like yeah, not a great guy. I'll talk more about it later, but great movie.
I'm glad you brought that up, because that was actually after we watched Barry Lyndon and had such a huge conversation about, do we like this guy? Honestly, when I was sitting and watching Memento this time, that was running through my head. I'm like, are we supposed to like Leonard?
No, because I think he's kind of selfish. Person. Like he's sort of selfish, and there's even though there's times where like like his memory sets, his character like it's not good. Like he has the ability to make conscious decisions. He just can't remember them. But the decisions that he's making, they're kind of dickish.
And we're going to talk about that because I think we'll all have a lot of feelings about that in particular, because there's a lot to unpack. Because it's like, who is Leonard? Honestly, do we really get a chance to actually know who he is? But I guess I'll hop in first real quick to talk a little bit about. So I remember watching this for the first time in cinema class in high school. I took a cinema class, and that was one of the first times where I felt like I expanded from just loving movies and being like a cinephile. Because like I could watch Star Wars and Indiana Jones and Rocky over and over and over and over and over again. And like when I took that cinema class, I saw Cool Hand Luke, The Fisher King, Apocalypse Now, Raging Bull for the first time, and all these different kinds of films. And this was one of them, which I had never heard of this before. And I remember my teacher had the special edition DVD where if you do a specific click pattern, because the DVD menu is a puzzle. And
that's my DVD.
Yeah, if you find a specific pattern, you find the film in chronological order, which is a weird experience watching it in chronological order, which it's like, should you? Not really. It's like the same thing. Should you watch Pulp Fiction in order? Could you, but should you?
Well, I mean, if it's your first time watching those movies, then definitely watch them like as the way they're supposed to be watched. But if it's like your third or fourth viewing, like I don't think there's any harm in like just seeing how those movies play out in chronological order.
It was an interesting experience. So like obviously all of us have seen it before. So if you have a chance to watch it that way, it's interesting because obviously how the film actually goes is we end at the center. But if you watch it chronologically, it ends at the beginning.
You remember what scene it is that it ends? Like what's the center?
Because all of you out there who are tuning in to watch this video about Memento, we're going to talk a lot about Memento. So if you haven't seen Memento, you should go watch Memento and then come back and listen to all of us talk about Memento.
Spoiler alert, for sure.
Spoilers. So to answer Alex's question, because the film ends in the middle with killing Jimmy.
Okay.
Because if you watch it chronologically, we end with killing Teddy.
Right.
Because that's the first thing we see in the film, right? Is him going backwards, like taking the picture, and then Joe Pantoliano being like, "What?" and him getting shot. Right. So it's interesting watching it that way. But so my first experience was in high school watching it. And then I watched it again in film club in college. And I've probably seen it 5, 6, 7 times since then. And it's interesting because this film, I've watched a lot of Christopher Nolan movies a lot of times because this was at the point where this was his first bigger film. And because like Following's a very small budgeted, short runtime film. And you have a Guy Pearce who wasn't like a big star at this point. And Guy Pearce has never really been a big star, but he's a really talented actor who works a lot. And obviously you had both Carrie-Anne Moss and Joe Pantoliano right off the Matrix, which I'm assuming when this was being filmed, the Matrix hadn't released yet. So they probably weren't like big household names when they were filming this film. And it's before Christopher Nolan, because like, I guess just to talk a little bit about his filmography at this point, he makes this and then he makes a studio remake of a European film, Insomnia, which is one of his more straightforward kinds of films. Obviously, there's still a lot going on because it's a Christopher Nolan film, but then he does Batman Begins. And basically over the next quite a few years at that point, he makes a movie with Batman in it, makes Warner Brothers a bunch of money, so then they'll bankroll his next film. So he made Batman Begins so he can make The Prestige. He made The Dark Knight so he can make Inception. He made The Dark Knight Rises so he can make Interstellar. And basically after The Dark Knight Rises, Warner Brothers has just been like, do whatever you want. Like, then he made Dunkirk, which made over $600 million for a war film that's very technical and has very little character in it. Like, and it still made hundreds of millions of dollars for Warner Brothers. And then Tenet. And I don't know if Christopher Nolan's going to be making movies for Warner Brothers anymore, but that's a whole entire other conversation.
Yeah, he is pissed.
I think they're both pretty pissed at each other at this point. So very interesting. But before I get ahead of ourselves, Jim, do you want to talk about your first experiences with Memento?
Sure. Sorry about that, guys.
That's okay.
So I was just going through the timeline because I wasn't really sure when I saw the movie the first time. And I think it was after I saw Interstellar. So like my introduction to Nolan was Batman Begins, probably The Dark Knight Rises, and then The Prestige somewhere in there, which is like one of my favorite movies. I could watch that movie a dozen times. I'd seen everything up to Interstellar, and then I went back and I was like, oh, Memento. Never seen this movie before. So I watched it on one of those crappy streaming sites that tries to give you all kinds of viruses. Didn't know anything about the movie. And I remember two takeaways. I remember two takeaways from my first time watching the movie was, one, I felt like he was being treated really badly by everybody. Guy Pearce's character, I mean. Because I remember them spitting in the beer, and it felt to me, to the viewer, like what's the policeman character's name again?
Teddy, not Joe. It felt to me like Teddy was kind of jerking him around and taking advantage of him and being really snide. And I also remember being confused. So on rewatching the movie, it was interesting to me that I'd retained the sympathy for the Guy Pearce character. When on the second watch, I think Matt maybe was saying, on second watch, he doesn't have many redeeming qualities at all. He's kind of dead behind the eyes. He's really not somebody that we should be rooting for at all. But I definitely was wrapped up in the subjective narration the first time. I fell for the unreliable narration the first time I watched the movie, like hook, line, and sinker. So the biggest change for me watching the second time was my sympathies definitely changed. I was much more skeptical of Guy Pearce as a narrator. But I did not pick up. Go ahead, Matt.
I was going to say, can I ask you that funny question I asked you in Barry Lyndon? Would you want to hang out with him at Applebee's?
No, this guy, I'd be terrified of this guy. You don't know where your night's going to go. I'll give you that. But you might wind up, buried in a warehouse somewhere. No, this guy was scary. Like Robert Downey Jr. in was it The Ice Harvest? No, Robert Downey Jr. in Kiss Kiss Bang Bang might be a good, but like I like Robert Downey Jr.'s character in Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. And I don't like Guy Pearce's character in this movie, like not much at all. But that was kind of fun. For me, that was like the biggest takeaway, the epitome of an unreliable narrator. Like he's so good. He's so unreliable that he's kind of deceived himself, I guess. That's my takeaway.
And we've already brought up a lot of interesting points about this film. And that's the beauty of this film, is there's so much to unpack. And because you can look at it from so many different layers, you can look at it, which we can talk about each of these things. Like obviously you have the layer of Nolan's technical presentation of this film. And we can talk a lot about that. There's so much to talk about in terms of the themes, because Leonard is so self-assured because he uses facts. You can tattoo something on your body and it's fact. And he's like, me not remembering things is good because memories are unreliable, but facts. But the thing is, who defines what a fact is? And that's a big theme throughout the film. And then I think one of the biggest things is, who is Leonard? Is it the guy who he used to be? Because to be fair, we don't know much about who he was and how he was, except for what he tells us about it. Like, we don't know how he was as a person, what his disposition was. We don't know who he is now. He doesn't know who he is now, but other people know who he is now. I think one particular person knows who he is now, and that's why I think Teddy's so interesting in this film. But I guess as like a starting point to try to talk about this is, I think it's a great place to start is, do we like Leonard? And do we trust Leonard in this film? Obviously, we've already heard from, like, obviously Matt made it very clear you do not like Leonard. And I know watching it this time, it's like, I don't really trust, like, I spent a lot of time watching it this time. I've seen it so many times, really focusing on him and what he says. And I don't trust him at all. And at least that's the feeling that I got after watching this so many times, and definitely, especially about his ideas of facts. But I guess jumping off from there, what do you all think about this character, Leonard?
So I wouldn't want to hang out with him at Applebee's either. I don't know. I feel like he's the type of person that, like, you offer a fry and then he'll take a handful, and it's like, what the hell? No, I'm kidding. But I think I don't feel bad for Teddy. I don't feel bad for Teddy because I feel like him getting killed, like, using Leonard as a weapon, and then that weapon going essentially, like, literally going off on you. That's like, there is no more, like, a comeuppance, like that's it. Boom, we found it. But then if he's a weapon, he's like a loose trigger, like a mad dog. Like, he doesn't know, or he chooses not to know certain things, and he's kind of like, and he's on, like, this revenge path, and like he's not even a vigilante. You know what I mean? Like he's a vigilante in the sense that he's, like, taking, like, law into his own hands, but not in, like, he's not like an anti-hero. Like, he's just like he's just an incredibly obsessed, very, very angry person who, I have to imagine, because, so when you get I have the DVD that I guess your teacher has, and with the DVD, like, I guess I'll get it in a couple of minutes. Like, the whole, you get, like, this little, like, it's like a little tiny box that's like that thick, but then inside of it, it has, like, therapy session notes. And I have to imagine that somebody who has, like, such a debilitating handicap probably wasn't, like, discharged, like, routinely from a hospital. So he probably broke out. I'm just assuming. I have to imagine that. Like, what? So yeah, I don't know. But I don't like him. I don't like him. I feel like he's too destructive for somebody to like, in my opinion. Like, I feel like if you like, who's the guy that you like, Alex? Wolverine. If you like Wolverine, but even Wolverine, like, he's cool because he'll go on a warpath, but then, like, like, he has a purpose. He does have control sometimes, most of the time. You know what I mean? But, like, even if he's, like, bloodthirsty, like, he still has a code. What is Leonard's code exactly? Anybody that gets inside of my way, like, whatever. And what is the end? What am I supposed to think about him moving forward after the credits are rolling? Because am I correct to say that he just picked a random license plate and he's just going to make that person, like, his new target? Is that what the ending is basically saying?
Well, I think that by the end of the film, the way that it is set up here is, and I think this is an interesting to talk about too, is what happens after he kills Teddy. Because I think he stops.
Well, he may, right.
I thought he was going to keep going.
Teddy, or he'll keep going. Teddy, it'll stop. It could stop because Teddy is the one who keeps using him to kill other people and keep his hands clean at the same time, But if he makes, once he realizes that Teddy's been the one who's been using him, but Teddy also reveals a truth to him that he really doesn't want to hear. So it's not so much to me that this character has a code, is that he has a lot of guilt, and he has his memory of what happened as well as the facts. And did you guys get a chance to watch the video I sent you where Nolan kind of explains, the whole hairpin idea on the blackboard? Because he talks about the stuff that's in color being the subjective, and the stuff that's in black and white being the objective. But then you also have something going on, two other lines going on, which is really the history, the history of the character. And so he ends up killing his wife. You know, I mean, that's what happened. He ended up killing his wife. I don't think he murdered his wife. I think Teddy says his wife survived the break-in, but he got severe head trauma from that break-in. And then he is Sammy Jenkins. You know, I don't know if his name is Sammy. I don't know about that, but remember Sammy Jenkins, he creates that whole thing to avoid the guilt of killing his wife. And now, ironically, this whole thing is basically just, you know, the first John G wasn't the murderer, but the first John G, correct me if I'm wrong, was one of the guys who broke in, and he killed that John G. And then a year later, Teddy's still using him to kill other John G's for his own gain. And so the sad thing, the most tragic thing about it is that he's just caught in this cycle of murder and revenge. And it's the only reality that he knows. It's easier for him to just get revenge than it is to deal with the guilt with what happened with his wife.
And he's choosing that though. And I think like he's making a conscious decision to go down that path in that segment of time where he's burning the photographs. At least in my opinion, that makes him responsible, like, for everything that's going to happen next. I mean, he was being manipulated. Maybe everybody's lying. Like maybe there's a couple backstory. Maybe every character is kind of like BSing like the audience, but he's, yeah, I don't know.
Well, the ironic thing
hang out with him
is that throughout most of the movie, he feels incredibly innocent, you know, and I also find him very likable. And, you know, but he can't let go. He's got that tattoo. You only see at the very end when he's lying in bed with his wife, he's got a tattoo that says, "I've done it." I think what that means is you're done. You got him. You're good. But it wasn't, he got rid of that tattoo, you know. It didn't stop, you know. And I don't exactly know why. Once he ends up killing his wife, he creates this revenge in his mind. So that becomes his reality. And, you know, I think that's his way of dealing with the trauma and the guilt is just by creating this reality. And because he can't remember, you know, he can't keep up, he can't create a new reality. This one is easier for him to live. And so, you know, no, I don't think I'd want to get fries with him, but I'm not making excuse. I'm not trying to make excuses for him. Yeah, because he would keep forgetting that he already took fries. Yeah. But I'm not trying to make excuses for him. I think it's incredibly sad. I mean, you know, one of the lines that always makes me want to cry is, I wrote it down. You know, we all need mirrors to remind ourselves of who we are. You know, and you know, the world doesn't stop just because you close your eyes. How am I supposed to heal if I can't feel time? You know, so I really think he's struggling. I really think he's suffering, but it's easier to just be in this film noir revenge thing that he's manufactured and that this other person is allowing him, that he's manufacturing with him, than to actually go and deal with it. You know, it's very, you know, so I don't, you know, I empathize with him. I think that if he didn't have this condition, he might actually, that's the question. I'll say it as a question instead of a statement. If he didn't have the condition, would he actually be able to go and get the help instead of keep murdering people?
Yeah, like, would you consider him, even with the condition, would you consider him like a serial killer by definition? I would have to.
What makes him a serial killer? The man or the condition?
Or I was saying that in the sense of like just like how do you feel about his actions?
Well, I think
Even without the
objectively, like if
you know,
you're just looking at the evidence that this same man has killed how many of these people with the same exact pattern, I never really thought about that, but I guess technically you like from a police perspective, they're probably hunting a serial killer. All these people who are John G's that are winding up dead. And but the thing is, like, it's so interesting to me because Jim, I appreciate you bringing up like the first time you watch it, I really was like, this is such a horrible thing this guy went through. And then the more you think about it, how does everybody feel specifically about his active choice to set up Teddy to die? Because it feels like up to this point, Teddy's been doing the setting up. Like Leonard already has these facts that Teddy tells him, Leonard, I didn't black out those pages. It's like you made this puzzle that can't be completed. And you can just keep inserting people into it, which also, I think you also have to think about how reliable is Teddy. Because, like, does Teddy have a reason to lie to him at that point or not, to BS with him? But
I believe Teddy. I believe Teddy there. And I was going to ask you guys why. Like, I don't know if it's kudos to Nolan or not, but I believe Teddy in that moment where he's lying out. All of that expedition is being laid out. I believe him, but I'm not sure I could pinpoint why. Sorry, go ahead, Shane.
that's okay. Does anybody have thoughts on that? Like, do we believe Teddy?
I only believe him because of the way Joey Pants kind of lays it out there. It's kind of like, dude, that's why I believe it, because of the performance, because of the way it was done. It was kind of like, dude, you know, this has been going on for a long time. I guess I also feel like the filmmakers at that point, I think we need a little bit of like direct truth. So I think that's why I believe it. Yeah, I don't know. If there's a, you know, that's why I believe it.
What do you think, Vinny?
You know what? I remember the first time watching this. Ted, I mean, you know, because of Joe Pantoliano's like performance, like, you know, he really does come across as a guy who's just he's in this whole thing. He's in this whole thing just for what he's gonna get out of it. He has his own motives, and he only has his eye on. He only has his eye on his prize. He doesn't have Leonard's he doesn't consider Leonard's well-being. And I really did, you know, I felt for Leonard pretty much throughout the whole movie, like up until the end when he does supposedly have the truth laid out for him, and then but then he chooses to continue this endless loop of revenge and take down the license plate,
Yeah.
and eventually go on the hunt for Teddy. And you know, even though at that point I did stop feeling bad for Leonard, again, at the same time, the part of me that does sympathize with him is that, you know, he's probably thinking, you know, with my condition, you know, this really is my only purpose in life right now. What else do I have going for me except going on these hunts every day until who knows when, and just keeping this fantasy alive to justify my actions for like hunting these people down.
I think it's really interesting too, because where my sympathies for him stopped was when he made that choice to kill Teddy. And I think because up to this point, all the killing he has done has been because he believes this
Right,
person
yeah.
killed his wife. And we could argue like morals and stuff like that, and if there's really any justified killing. But I feel like at least on some level, if your significant, like your partner in life was murdered, I think there would be people out there that would sympathize with somebody doing something about it. But at this point, he has all of this supposed truth from Teddy laid out in front of him. This is what's been happening, Leonard. And he points out to Leonard that he's been enabling himself by not filling in the pieces that he does have. There's other puzzle pieces that Leonard has access to, but he's purposely hiding from himself. And Teddy being, I feel like on some level, Teddy does care about Leonard, but he also is a shitty person.
Mm-hmm.
So he's going to take advantage anyway. Because, like, I feel like, because there's a lot to interpret there. Was Teddy trying to get him out of this town because he wants to save his own ass? Because he's afraid of what's going to happen when people start looking for Jimmy? Or is he doing it because he's really concerned that Leonard is putting himself in danger by assuming this role, like taking the suit, taking the car of this guy and doing these things? But Leonard makes that choice, whether it's, I think there's potential motivations, like now he knows the truth. He knows the truth and it's not hidden from himself anymore. So he's going to kill Teddy to end it. Because will Leonard continue if Teddy isn't there to fill in the pieces for him? And who's to say he doesn't kill Teddy and finally put that tattoo on himself again? But does he get rid of it again? That's the thing.
That goes to Matt's point, right? Like that he made that choice. He made the choice back then to keep this going at some point. He must have made that choice.
Well, and
he could find a new purpose. He could, like, I don't know, do TED Talks or something like that. Like, do something else. What's wrong with kill people?
Well, and that's the thing, because he chooses to kill Teddy. He sets up all the pieces for him to kill Teddy. He's making that decision to kill Teddy, and I don't know if we could ever know. Well, in the moment as the film is wrapping up, because in terms of the film, that's the end. Leonard's driving off, telling himself, like, you know, Teddy, you even said it yourself, you're a John G. What if you're my next John G? What if you're the real John G? And he is very angrily, like, he is going to kill Teddy, and he knows it in that moment. And that's a thing too, because Leonard can know things in the moment. And that's what terrifies me at the end of the film, is he is actively doing all that, knowing that he's going to manipulate the situation to kill Teddy. And then, bam, the film ends with him outside the tattoo parlor and him just like, huh? And it all starts all over again.
Manipulating himself. He could kill him right then and there, could he not? Choke him, throw him down the stairs.
He could.
But instead, he manipulates himself into thinking that he's he's John G, or he's going to be. He's going to discover that he's John G. So he's setting it up for himself. It's that's crazy. That's absolutely crazy. Yeah.
Actually, I hadn't thought about that, because, like, I guess Leonard could just kill Teddy at that abandoned place.
But he needs rationale for killing him. And by setting it up in the little maze that he does, you know, now he'll have rationale by the time he gets to that conclusion, you know. So he's a rational person, you know, but he has this incredibly irrational way of doing this because of his condition. And yeah, and I also think at the root of it, because he doesn't want, like I said, I don't think he wants to deal with the guilt of killing his own wife, with the syringes, with the diabetic issue. So yeah, it's just incredibly sad. It's very sad, I think. So I still think the movie holds up really well. It shows how talented Christopher Nolan is. However, I will also say that it is also, to me, it acts as kind of a prelude or the start of Christopher Nolan making these types of films that have these kind of devices. Actually, before I say this, does anybody else want to say anything else about what happens or doesn't happen with the character? I'm sorry to jump topics.
I mean, I do have a thing. I had written at the bottom of my notes here is, his wife's still alive or dead? 2 question marks. So I think you answered my question, but is that does everybody agree that his wife is dead and he killed his wife? And if so, was Sammy Jankis real? Was Sammy Jankis even married? Like, how much of that actually matches up?
Well,
actually,
go ahead, Vinnie.
sorry. Okay. I actually think, I think he did kill his wife, accidentally, and then end up in the mental hospital, and then I guess maybe at some point, well, I don't know if either he escaped or was allowed to leave, because I definitely think he was in the hospital at some point, because there's a moment pretty late in the movie when Shane, when they have a flashback, they have the flashback, you see Sammy, sitting in like that communal area and just like staring blankly off screen. And then there's someone like walks by in front of him. And then as soon as that person passes Sammy, for like a split second, Sammy becomes Leonard, and then becomes Sammy again. Like I had to rewind it a couple of times just to like be just like I was, because at first when it happened, I was like, wait, what was that? And then I rewound it 2 more times, and I was like, oh, there's Leonard and not Sammy.
Which, real quick, shout out to Dottie Dorn, the editor on this film, because the editing in this film is impeccable.
I think it was nominated for an Oscar for editing.
Which, because the thing is, like, I don't think this film would work if you didn't have like a top-notch editor being able to put all this together, because exactly that point. So, and I think this is going back to a conversation we had earlier. So, to be fair, Christopher Nolan usually isn't the greatest about exposition. Usually expositional scenes in his films are just like dump. But there's that scene like at the end of the film, which chronologically is at the middle of the story. Teddy is spewing all those truths out. And I think really you could pull this thread if you really want to, because I think this film is ambiguous enough that if you really wanted to dig into it like this, is how much do we believe Teddy in that moment? Teddy tells him, Sammy was never married. Sammy was a con man, and he caught Sammy. But Leonard can't deal with what he did, so he transposes, for his own sake, his story of killing his wife onto Sammy. So he can keep telling this story of Sammy Jankis as a way of remembering what happened, but he can't confront it, so he doesn't make it himself. And it feels like he's imprinting his story onto this person that he investigated. But that's the thing. That only makes sense in the film is if you 100% believe what Teddy says at the end of the film. And if we believe Teddy in that moment, I think it's very obvious that Leonard's wife survived. He killed the man who attacked her. he kills his wife by accident.
By accident.
And then starts this whole entire cycle, because what does he do then? It's very like Shutter Island-y.
That's what I was thinking of, like at the end of the movie. I was like, wow, this actually does remind me of Shutter Island.
Yeah, because the thing is, it's like there's that amazing quote at the end of that film.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Where he's just like, I'm not going to get it exactly right, but the gist of it is,
would you rather die a good man? Would you rather live as a
die as a good man or live as a monster?
Yeah.
And that's the thing, because would Leonard rather forget what he did and live his life as a monster? But he doesn't know it. He doesn't know that he's killing all these people. He only knows of the next John G. Mm-hmm. He can't see backwards. And he either tells himself this lie to live out in ignorance and not realizing how much of a monster he is, or he has to confront it and realize, like, because what's this man going to do if he came to this realization, has been confronted about it, that he killed his wife, and how many John G's? How does he confront it? By setting up another John G and continuing the cycle and completely ignoring it.
And now without Teddy, that new John G may actually just be like a regular innocent person, not just somebody that should go to jail, but Teddy's deeming, like, you know, executioner himself. What is a random dude in Starbucks who's named John, just chilling, and then boom, espresso everywhere.
I think Shane, you asked before, someone asked, does he stop after Teddy, or does he find a way to create more John G's, because it's more comfortable, it's more logical, he doesn't have to deal with the emotion. You know, I guess, does he stop or does he continue? I don't think that they answer that. I don't know if they answer that question.
And I don't know, and that's a tough thing, because I don't know if you can know, because up to this point, every single person that he has killed as John G was because Teddy gave him information to do so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
what about Dodd? I mean, I know he didn't kill Dodd, but like, let's not give Natalie a pass here.
Well, and we haven't even talked about her, which the thing is, she, in that situation, acts as Teddy. Mm-hmm. She set up Dodd.
Yeah.
Which also, my God, I think that's one of the most affecting sequences in this film, is when, because like, Carrie-Anne Moss does such a great job in this film between scene to scene, because she was vicious in that scene where she provokes him about his wife.
Just yeah, she starts off so innocent. You like really like her.
Well, I was gonna say like, it's a scene that totally catches you off guard, because like her first scene when she meets Leonard in the diner, like she seems like a really friendly person and is willing to help him out. But then you just have this scene where she just like she just eviscerates him like emotionally. And it's just, wow. Like, she went there.
Like, her sitting in that car staring in
yes
is terrifying. That stare is so vindictive and
he's taking
evil,
advantage.
And you're just like, what else is this woman capable of? Because like, there's on some level, she obviously knows what Jimmy's doing. Like, her boyfriend, how involved is she in these criminal acts and stuff like that? I wouldn't put much by her, because
what and it makes you think that like at some point Leonard does kill Teddy, and sure, Teddy was the one that Teddy's been the one who's been using Leonard the most for his personal gain, but at the end, once Teddy's out of the picture, who's to say that other people who know of Leonard's condition won't use him for their own personal gain?
That's a really interesting point, because they do set that up throughout the film. And like Jim, you brought up Dodd. Leonard was pointed at him by Natalie. And we know, what's it, Mark Boone Jr., I think? Yeah, who's the guy who also pops up in a few different Nolan films. And he's the guy who runs a hotel, the motel. He uses him. And obviously, like, not, he doesn't use him to kill people, but he tricks him.
Well, and actually, speaking of Mark Boone Jr., I just want to say, like, just like a quick shout out to like just like the little details that Nolan puts into the movie, because there's one scene when Leonard is going to the main office at the hotel to talk with the manager, and he begins to push the door, but then he's like, oh no, I got he remembers that it's a door they have to pull and not push. And it's just one of those little details that really plays on the whole thing with Leonard's loss of memory, and just like these little things that he forgets but then has to remember. And then there's another scene where I can't remember what. Oh no, he has the picture of Natalie, and Teddy tells him not to trust Natalie. So up until that point, on all his other photos, when he puts a little note on the back of each photo, it's all those notes are in all caps. Whereas when Teddy tells him don't believe Natalie, Leonard just as an act, he's gonna write down, oh, okay, yeah, I won't trust Natalie, even though he does trust Natalie, but he puts that note in cursive. I get, and just that little detail, the way I saw was how all these other notes he writes that are in all caps those are the instructions that he follows, whereas this is one instruction that he put in cursive, but just to show that this is one that he's not going to follow. He's going to go by his own instinct. You guys know what I mean?
I did not notice that, and that's really interesting.
Was it the same Polaroid? Was it the same Polaroid where he crosses out someone?
He crosses it out later on. Yeah.
Okay, he crossed out the cursive.
Yeah.
Okay.
And is that him consciously sending himself a message, or is that a Nolan thing sending the audience a message? Or I don't know. That's interesting.
Right. It's just a little detail kind of, hanging there. I think the first time I watched it, I didn't think anything of it. But the second time, not remembering everything that happened, I thought, oh, okay, he crosses that out for a reason, And then, is it the same one where it says "Don't believe his lies," or is that a different?
No. It's the Polaroid of Natalie, and on the back of it, in cursive, he writes don't believe Natalie, or don't believe her lies. And then once he leaves Teddy, he turns the photo back over where he wrote the note, and he crosses it out,
because she wants to help. He wrote later, right? Something
something like that.
Yeah, because he writes,
pity. She's going to help you out of pity.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he writes the thing about Teddy, don't believe his lies, at the end of the film, but the middle of the story after he kills Jimmy. And he puts that on there to try to sow his own mistrust with Teddy so that he could kill Teddy later.
Mm-hmm.
I really do want to watch it chronologically now. I know it probably won't be as good of a film, but I love to watch it chronologically just to have that experience and to really be able to put the puzzle pieces together, you know? Yeah.
But I think, and Vinny, you bring up a really interesting point, because who says another person doesn't jump right in and use him as a weapon? And like, this might be a strange connection, but this popped in my head. Like, him killing Teddy, the man wielding him as a weapon, has like that feeling of like what should be like a cathartic thing, like Roy Batty killing Tyrell in Blade Runner, because it's like he created him for a reason. He destroys his creator. And Leonard, the Leonard we know in this film, was created by Teddy and himself, and has been manipulated this whole entire time as a weapon. And here's the thing, and I guess this is up to everybody's judgment on how much do we blame Leonard for all of this, and how much do we blame Teddy for all of this? But I think that's something interesting to think about. But I want to get back to, because Alex, what were you bringing up earlier?
Well, I was going to say that I think the answer to that for me depends on who got rid of the "I've done it" tattoo. Like, whoever got rid of that tattoo, and whoever's getting rid of. Also, I wonder, when does the first John G get killed, before or after he accidentally kills his wife?
I think it's before.
Before his wife gets killed. If that's the case, I cannot help but blame Leonard. Of course, you have to blame Teddy and Natalie. They're both using him. They're both, enabling him and manipulating him for their gain. But Leonard's definitely, part of, he's the one getting rid of that tattoo. He's the one who's continuing to go down that.
Yeah, because when you put it like that, who's to say that Leonard killing the first couple of people, like who's to say that he didn't do that on his own, and then somehow Teddy came across this guy thinking, I could use Leonard to find the people who I want to get rid of.
But Teddy tells him during that whole entire exposition dump, Leonard, I was the cop on your case. I helped you, because like that's why that scene's so important at the end, because we have to rely on a lot of information that Teddy gives us as an audience, and then gives Leonard in that moment, that paints this. And it's very interesting, because it's like, I guess because I got so lost in this film that I didn't really think about, but to be honest, the end of this movie really is a big like, and this is how it all happened. Like, just dumping a bunch of exposition on you. But I guess it doesn't feel that way, because we are so connected with Leonard the first time you watch it, because you don't really know what's all going on until Teddy tells us. And we're so caught up in it, or like, do we believe Teddy? Because like, I don't think Leonard believes Teddy when Teddy's telling him.
I put my finger on it.
Mm-hmm.
I think I put my finger on why I believe Teddy. So at that point in the movie, we're getting a lot of true expression from the people in his life. So Natalie, for example, we have a scene with Natalie where she just tells him off to his face. She tells him how she really feels about him. We see that stare through the window. Teddy, same thing. He has no reason to lie. And he actually says this in that exposition dump. He's like, you're not going to remember this anyway. So he really has no reason to be dishonest with Leonard at that point in the movie, unless the plot just demands it. But this isn't that kind of a movie, and I don't think. So I think that's why I trust Teddy in that moment, just because the mood of the film is like, this is what's really going on. It's trying to kind of communicate that to us at that point,
Yeah, right. I agree. He has no reason to. Well, what's the point of lying if he's not going to remember the lie or the truth anyway?
Well, in that case, you could say, why tell the truth, right? That's for us, I guess, right?
I guess so. It just doesn't seem to, yeah, doesn't seem to make. It's almost like he's playing with him, like he's toying with him at that point.
I kind of feel like he's going to look out for him. I don't still, maybe I just like the actor, Joey Pants. I don't, maybe that's why, but I really feel like he's kind of looking out for Leonard. I do get that
I want to
impression
like him
from
too.
like,
That's the other thing. Yeah.
Well, and
I wanted to like him in the Matrix, and he ends up being the asshole of the Matrix.
goddamn Cypher. But that's an interesting thing because for me, I remember watching this for the first time and did not trust Teddy at all. Like the whole entire movie, and I feel like the reason why is he, like, the design, like how he looks, I think is so specifically on purpose. He has that, like, he looks like a cop, he has that mustache, and he always has this grin on his face like this, and he's like, Lenny!
It's like he eats a lot of cheese.
And he just feels scummy and just like, I don't trust this guy. But I think that's why by the end of the film, I think it's trying to be like, we've been set up this whole entire time, because I feel like in the color scenes, Leonard doesn't trust Teddy. There seems to be something going on underneath that Leonard's very apprehensive about trusting Teddy. And since we're going on it, and this is actually perfect that Alex, you mentioned and sent that video to us beforehand, because that's exactly right. The scenes in color are subjective based off of Leonard, but the black and white scenes are objective. And obviously they melt together seamlessly, just like how in the film it changes from black and white to color at the end to signal we've reached the turning point. But I don't think are meant to trust Teddy throughout those color scenes. And I think it's on purpose. We don't know who he's talking to on the phone in the black and white scenes.
But it is Teddy, is it not?
It is the whole entire time.
Right.
I think that the film sets us up to distrust Teddy because we're in Leonard's head. And then the turn of the film is that we shouldn't have been trusting Leonard this whole time. And maybe Teddy's a scummy person, but on some level, I think he does care about Leonard. And obviously he uses him to make a lot of money and to do all kinds of things. But I think at that point in the film's telling us, just kidding. And I feel like it's a very Nolan thing. And I don't mean just Christopher Nolan too. Because like Jonathan Nolan does the same kinds of things. I don't know if any of you have watched Westworld. Yep. But like, you want to talk about a puzzle of something, that show is nuts. And trying to figure out, because it warps with your expectations of things. Prestige, same deal. Inception, same deal. It's like we're manipulated as an audience so much. Like there's very few films that got me like The Prestige did. I remember watching that film. I love that film. Love it to pieces. When I got to the end of that movie, I'm just like, wait, what? It got me. I didn't see any of that coming.
That's what I was going to say. It's just personal opinion. I haven't seen all of Interstellar or Dunkirk. I saw bits and pieces of Interstellar, but I think The Prestige is his best film, start to finish. That's just me being a critic and, agree or disagree. Because this goes to what I was going to say before is I think sometimes, yes, I think these devices, his greatest achievement as a director can sometimes create his biggest flaw, because these wonderful, cerebral devices kind of leave you this far away from his characters. And The Prestige is the one where I felt like, because it worked with the obsession, it's about obsession. It's about obsession and competition between two magicians. That one is where that's close enough to us. We can kind of understand that, relate to that. I don't care if you're an athlete or a musician or, you know, whatever, if you competed with another guy over a girl before, you know what that feels like. So all of that's really, really palpable. Whereas I feel like, you know, a lot of the other Nolan movies, especially Inception and especially Tenet, I'm so removed from the characters. Even in Memento, like Memento's a weird one, because with Memento, I feel close, and then by the end of the movie, I'm like, oh wait, I'm not as close as I thought I was, you know? And I'm like, oh, no wonder, Christopher Nolan, because there is this kind of feeling for me that, like, I'm never allowed to get as close to these characters as I want to be, because there's all this stuff going on. I think Inception has aged very badly in terms of as a film I enjoy watching, because the emotional stuff is just kind of like another train riding along this really amazing, like, dream within a dream within a dream stuff, where DiCaprio's being DiCaprio and, you know, and he's amazing, but the two trains aren't on the same track. Like, the emotion and the whatever that cerebral stuff is doesn't work for me in Inception. Dark Knight, I love Dark Knight. Dark Knight's awesome. And you could say that's, you know, it's awesome. I think it's a great movie. But The Prestige is the one where I feel like I can actually get close to it. I feel like The Dark Knight, it's like, well, of course I feel close to Batman, and everybody quietly wants to be the Joker without being a mass murderer. But that's how I feel about a lot of the Nolan films. And with this one, I like this movie. I really like this movie. I love Guy Pearce. I love the performances. I love the device. But again, it just feels like a prelude or the beginning of these Nolan films, where you're getting a farther width away from these characters.
And honestly, that's the biggest criticism of Christopher Nolan, is the lack of emotional connection to his films. They feel very cold and distant, a lot of his films. And I think that's exactly why he wrote the whole entire, like, it's all about love in Interstellar. Like, the connection over space and time is his love for his daughter. And, like, I think he was really trying to be like, no, I care about emotions. But the thing is with Memento, I think that, and it's very interesting, Alex, that you said it's like we start here and go out. It's because we feel super connected to the Leonard that he believes he is, but we're worlds apart from the Leonard he actually is, just like Leonard.
Yeah.
You know, I'm sorry, I just gotta say, I gotta get going, but as always, great talk with you guys, and I look forward to discussing The French Connection.
Yes, that's our next film. So we'll talk about that at the end of the video. But see you, Vinny.
Oh, sorry, didn't mean to jump the gun.
No, because it's a lovely tease, and they'll just keep watching and they want to hear about it.
All right, sounds good. All right, have a good night, guys.
See you, Vinny. But yeah, I feel like it's so interesting at that point, because we are connected to Leonard and the Leonard he thinks he is, but we're reacting to what Teddy says at the end of the film, just like Leonard is. Because, like, that first time we do watch it, actually, I'm interested, and I'm going to let Matt say how he felt the first time he watched it, because I'm interested to hear about that. But I know when I watched this for the first time, I felt very sympathetic for Leonard. And then it rips the rug out from under you. And then you find out at the end who he really is. And you're just like, every time you watch it since, that's in your head the whole entire time. And I think the more you watch it, I think the more I have felt less sympathetic to Leonard and have questioned, are you supposed to? And I think in terms of watching this film for the first time, you're supposed to connect with Leonard so that the impact at the end of the film hits you harder. And because you're just as shocked about what Teddy has to say. But quick thing, Matt, did you like Leonard the first time you watched it?
I did. And it's funny thinking about watching it now, because you start out the entire movie with, like, a very close, like, the shot of somebody getting shot in the back of the head, like that's even before that, like someone who has the capacity to kill someone not only did so, but then took a picture of it. Like I don't know, like so when I watched it the first time, I was like, okay, wow, that's jarring. And you see the whole movie, and it's like crappy people, and it's a sympathetic guy, and damn it, his wife is dead. And then at the end, I remember thinking, well, that really sucked. That really sucks for him. And I didn't really take it. I didn't take the ending to mean that he's going to continue. I don't even know remember how I took the ending, but I definitely didn't think, okay, so he's gonna just move on to the next one. I don't know what I thought when I first saw the movie. Maybe I just didn't come up to a conclusion when I first saw it. But now, and I don't know how I felt about it in the other viewings, but like now, like I don't know, he's kind of cold. He's kind of cold, and he's a little bit calculating, which makes him a little bit more than a little bit. What's the word?
Scary.
Yeah, like culpable. Is the word culpable? Like you can be blamed for what you were doing. I don't. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, that's an interesting thought. I've lost sympathy from when I first saw him to when I saw him like this weekend. That doesn't make him bad.
Right.
I like Darth Vader, and like if you really, and I like Kylo Ren, but if you really think about it, both of those people, like those are terrible people, both
Genocide.
of them. Yeah,
Like,
genocide. Like, also, what was that kiss with Rey? What the hell was that? But like,
we're now going to talk about Rise of Skywalker. So I hope you're all prepared.
The conversation was getting angry. Like, no, I don't know. Leonard's an interesting guy. Oh, and then I wanted to show you guys. So this is DVD. It's the box set. So first of all, can you see Leonard
Shelby, no matter of an application for the. Oh my God.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's like, yeah. So that's how it goes.
Oh, cool.
And it's like Memento and has a bunch of crap on the back. But then you open it. What makes this cool? I've never seen this before, and I wish I didn't get this secondhand because it I got this at Record Exchange.
Oh, nice.
Oh, hell yeah.
If you haven't been to the Princeton Record Exchange, you should totally go to the Princeton Record Exchange. Because it's really awesome.
Awesome place.
So like you open it up, you have, like a DVD, any special features, which I haven't even looked at this entire time. And then you have like a bunch of I don't know how to put it. It's like progress, but then it's like the wording is incomprehensible. It looks like I don't know. I can't really read it all that much. But then
decreases in attention span. Yeah.
Then on top of that, like you have like these like this rundown. I don't know if you can see it. Contusion to the head.
Wow.
It's like all of this random stuff. Yeah, it's like it's so cool. And what you see right now, this is actually how the DVD menu is set up in this, like on this DVD. Like it actually doesn't really have play, scenes, special features. It has random words, and you have to like click on which one. Yeah, may or may not be the right one. And it's just like this all this random stuff. I think that's awesome. But yeah, no, I don't want to hang out. I'll just go back to what I said before. I don't see myself hanging out with him at Applebee's. I can't. He's too, because even if he didn't have this thing where he would forget like every 15 or 20 minutes, like there are multiple examples that like of other characters that I would immediately assign like as the bad guy, who do sort of like a thing where they lie to themselves, or they like, they kind of excuse certain things, and they kind of like put some kind of, well, yeah, but it's for a good reason though, like justify the means. I don't know, like.
Well, the best antagonists and villains believe they're the hero of their stories.
Right.
That's true. True.
Well, unfortunately, going on to believe that is going to be the downfall of. If the ending means that he's going to continue to kill other people, then that means that his continuing to believe his own story means that like innocent people will die. And technically, from like a legal standpoint, none of those people that he killed were convicted people, so they shouldn't have died anyway. I don't know, whatever.
And I think because I didn't think about what would happen at the end of the story until we talked today. Like that thought never crossed my mind. I had never put thought into, does he stop? But I think that's such an interesting thing to think about. And this is why this film, which technically released in theaters wide 20 years ago, March. So I actually have an article.
2001?
Yep. It's a 2000 film, but it came out wide release in 2001.
Okay.
So I actually have an article about Memento coming out on Scribe Magazine for its 20th anniversary. So you all should go keep an eye out for it. Shamelessly.
Oh, that's cool. Right on. I didn't realize it was the 20th anniversary.
Yeah, it's been 20 years. And look how big Christopher Nolan is in the internet movie community.
Oh, yeah.
Like there's Nolan fanboys everywhere. And I love Christopher Nolan. He's my second favorite director because
sorry.
I was just going to say, because like I love the technical aspects of his films and just the puzzles that he sets up and you get lost in them. And between him and his DP, Wally Pfister, with this film and how this is all put together, this is impeccably directed. Like, how do you make this work? Like, legitimately, as a filmmaker, how do you make this story work? Somehow he did.
Yeah, I can't take anything. He really has done a lot to, advance film too. I mean, he's incredibly influential, and also just technically, I think he's brilliant. And that even that is sort of somewhat on display in Memento. And I did find it kind of funny because I saw Tenet, and it's so funny that one of the first shots in this movie is the bullet going back into the gun.
Yeah.
And isn't that funny that that's the first shot of this movie?
And all those years later, he's like, how can I make a whole movie about this?
Right. Yeah, it's crazy.
Well, and to your point, Alex, what you brought up, like nothing is more disconnected of his films than Tenet. Legitimately the main character's name, the protagonist.
Yeah.
Like the movie's telling us you're not going to connect to these people. And basically he just like, how do I make a sci-fi Bond movie? Mm-hmm. But like not Moonraker, like an actual science fiction Bond movie.
It doesn't feel like a Bond movie. And I don't know, maybe it's good, in a sense, because as an artist, he's saying, well, look, I'm just going to make what I want to make. If it's removed, it's removed. You're either with me or you're not, sort of thing. I get that. And Ridley Scott takes that approach sometimes with some movies, I'm going to get what I want if they're with me or not, it's great. And you can do that and have $100 million budget, it's pretty.
Or 250 for Tenet.
Right. So, I mean, it's pretty amazing when you can make a movie and have that mentality. But no, I know I walked away from Tenet feeling like it was a Rubik's Cube that I didn't really care to solve, because I wanted to care, but I just was like, you know what? I don't know if I care. That's just how I felt. Maybe I'll watch it again and feel differently. But with Memento, I still care. I was
about to say, I haven't seen Tenet. I don't fully know if I want to. Really, I don't know. I feel like my hype for it. I was in love with the trailer, then my hype for it kind of died down once I heard other people talk about it. So yeah, I don't know if I would want to, but would you watch it again though? I like to ask that of people. Like, would you buy the DVD? Would you watch that movie again? Or even better, would you watch it alone without other people kind of like sitting next to you and making the experience like fun? Because you can like, hey, like, oh, like that extra like sneeze and it's not on his face now.
I think Tenet's not the kind of movie you want to watch with a bunch of people, because I think they're just going to distract you and then you're like, what the hell's happening now? It's that kind of movie.
Usually the special effects are supposed to distract you though from the things that don't quite fit together, right? Like once
that's bad.
Not that I am supposed to be able to wrap my mind about like the kinetic energy coming backwards and why it doesn't blow the gun apart. Like I was like, suspension of disbelief is just a thing that we have to do sometimes to enjoy a movie. And so I didn't think about it too much.
Physics, yo.
But exactly, like, I don't know if the physics are actually supposed to make sense or not.
Well, and I feel like the cheat of sci-fi and fantasy is like, well, if time bending things happen, who says actual physics has to exist? And I feel like that's like a cheap way that you can get around that. And like, which is very interesting because the amount of time he put into Interstellar to get that as scientifically accurate as possible is strange that he didn't do that in Tenet. But like, I guess Interstellar, well, besides like the very end, because like, unless you believe in string theory and tesseracts and stuff like that, up to that point, I feel like Interstellar's like, this could be science future. With the right technology, it could be science future. I don't think Tenet can be science future. That's still like, this is made up stuff, unless magically humanity figures out how to manipulate time.
Interstellar had Neil deGrasse Tyson as like not like a script supervisor, but as like a consultant or something. I don't know if he had a consultant on Tenet,
but
aside from his own echo chamber.
And I know we have digressed a lot.
Well, was there a consultant on this movie? Maybe we can bring it back that way. Because I read about a guy, I've been trying to remember this whole discussion. I read about a guy with a condition like Sammy Jankis, like exactly like Sammy Jankis. He had a wife who was trying to help him out. He sat there in front of the TV all day long. And I think it was The Power of Habit. I think that was the book I read this in. But I'm pretty sure that Jonathan Nolan took this thing that he read about and brought it to his brother, and they hashed it out on this cross-country road trip. But I wonder, too, if they had some kind of a professional to consult about, like, the actual science of this.
I know he didn't have, like, a mental health person to consult, because that guy, him being released from the hospital, that's definitely against medical advice. Like, what? What are you talking about?
So I guess biggest plot hole of the movie is, how did Leonard even get out of the hospital to start this whole entire story?
Yeah.
But to be honest, Matt, I had never thought about that before.
Like, why is he walking around? Because he's walking around like, where does he get his cash? Where is his cash coming from?
Well, he has money because they keep killing drug dealers and stealing money from them. Because that's exactly
there was like $100,000 in the Jaguar, right? There was like $100,000 in the trunk or something.
Well, and that's why everybody, Teddy's just like, Lenny, why are you driving around in this car? And it's just like, why he kept asking Leonard, like, can I drive? Like, Teddy knows there's money in that trunk. Teddy wants that money in the trunk. And obviously that's another motivation for Teddy, knowing that, shit, this guy who can't remember anything is literally driving around with $100,000 in his trunk. In the clothes of the guy he killed for it. In his car. So there's a lot of issues. Like, Teddy's just like, either Teddy really cared about Leonard and just wanted him to be safe, or Teddy's like, oh my God, I need this money. How am I going to stop him from screwing this up? But there's a lot of layers there.
I had to say real quick, you got to give a lot of credit to Trinity and Joey Pants here. The two people from the Matrix here. This feel so, I know it's early 2000s, but it feels so late 90s. This movie. I also, Matt mentioned Pulp Fiction. I'm surprised Shutter Island got brought up. I also can't help but think of Fight Club, because this was sort of that era of like, there's going to be a twist and the protagonist is actually the antagonist, and who you thought they weren't really. This was kind of that. I felt like the late 90s, early 2000s, very much known for those types of movies.
Well, and it's interesting because you have The Matrix, Fight Club, and Memento all come out within like a year or so of each other. Right. And it's all about this. What is reality? What is fact? What is real? Yeah. And where Fight Club and Memento fit so closely together is because we have a narrator. Right. And we're seeing this all from their perspective. And should we trust them? And very obviously, neither of them are very trustworthy. Like with The Matrix, it's Neo being welcomed into Wonderland, basically. Chase the White Rabbit. And we have a guide. Like Morpheus is not only Neo's guide, but our guide. Here, this does feel a lot like Fight Club in many ways in terms of how it's set up narratively.
Right. Yeah. It's certainly. It's maybe a little less on the nose about what it's trying to say than Fight Club. Yes, and I still have a lot of love for Fight Club, but it's definite. But it still has that feel to it.
Well, the Memento, and I mentioned this at the very beginning. The themes of what's fact. What is a fact? I think a lot of people question facts today and what actually defines fact. And do we believe science? Do we believe these numbers that tell us a specific thing? It's just like, how do you define them in a time of fake news and like not
alternative facts?
It's like this film is really relevant today thematically, and it's so interesting because Leonard is so hyped up on all these tattoos or facts, but as somebody who doesn't have memory, who told you these facts?
Right. Sure.
Because like
teacher.
Because if somebody is as convincing as they can be, tells you something, you believe them.
I thought that's what you were about to say.
Well, here's an interesting thing to think about that. Think about college. As a freshman, you come in, what comes out of your professor's mouth is fact.
Right. We give authority to those people. Sure. And let's not dig too much into that. But I do think, what you're saying about alternative facts and everything, I do think that it's not that history teachers aren't giving us facts and dates, but I do think the history that I got was a slice of a much bigger story. And you learn that once you start reading and you start talking with other people, watching documentaries, that you just got a slice of what was, especially a lot of stuff I hear about the late 1800s in America. My God, they didn't tell us that. They didn't tell us anything about all that. Americans, I do think, we got a slice of the facts and a slice of the actual, stories of that time. That's all I mean to say by that.
And the facts in Memento are a slice of the whole story because Leonard literally redacted the rest.
Exactly. Like what makes him not a good guy in my eyes. It's not like, it's okay to be skeptical. That's fine. If anything, that makes you a better consumer of like facts or media, or a better student to be like skeptical and then to like chase your own like truth and things like that. But then also be able to say like, oh yeah, well, asterisks. But there's the difference between skeptical and then creating versus like creating your own like story, like intentionally, and then like just like running with that. Like that's okay. Like him saying that I have to believe that there's a world when I close, the world is still going on when I close my eyes. Like, well, whatever the world is doing, whether or not your eyes are open, like that doesn't really matter because you are actively choosing to see and interact with the world in whatever way you want, specifically with violence. which I'm going to keep making this joke because I like the joke, which deems you unworthy of my Applebee's hanging out. But,
You can't show up to Applebee's with me like that. Because that's the thing. Leonard puts blinders on, and his whole entire perspective, he's walking around with his eyes closed and imagining.
The whole maze that he's putting himself through is blinders. I think so. Yeah.
But I guess I know one other thing that I really wanted to bring up, and this is like we've talked a lot about the cast. Like Joe Pantoliano is fantastic. Carrie-Anne Moss, like that stare though. Like every time I see that scene, I'm just like, she looks like she wants to kill someone. Or
that
like
movie Gone Girl? Was Gone Girl the movie? Yeah, shades of those performances. Kind of.
Yeah, just imagine what Amazing Amy would do to Leonard if she had her hands on him. Be painting all kinds of things, because look what she does to Ben Affleck in that. And not that he didn't, like, neither of those characters are very good people. That's a movie that I feel dirty after watching. I'm just like, oh man,
Dirty Shane.
like Dirty Shane. I want to go pet my new cat right now, thinking about Gone Girl. I'm just like, I want to play with a cat, play with some puppies or something, because that movie messes me up. But
it's funny. I could have seen Fincher directing Memento. I don't know if it would have been. I don't think it would have been structured like that necessarily. But I could it definitely feels like it could have taken place in a Fincher film.
And that's interesting, especially after we talked about Fight Club.
Yeah. Like, sure, yeah.
But I definitely want to give a lot of shout out to Guy Pearce, which I forget who actually said it. They can't imagine anybody else playing in this role, which I don't know if I would go that far. That was you, Matt.
That was Alex.
No, that wasn't me.
No.
I think as long as you had like a really strong actor in this role, but like I don't think enough people give Guy Pearce enough credit, because he's not a leading man.
Like, he gets forgotten about.
Yeah.
And then he's back again. Yeah.
Well, like, fun fact, I just reviewed a film this weekend of his latest film, The Seventh Day, where he plays an exorcist.
Oh shit. I won't be watching that.
No. Fun fact, it's basically Training Day, except instead of a young cop, it's a young exorcist. And he's going on like training to be an exorcist with this like grizzled, which you're probably not going to be the greatest guy by the end of this movie, Guy Pearce. And you're just like, I literally said in my review, I'm like, I felt like I just watched Exorcist Training Day. Like,
who's the young priest?
Crap, what was his name?
He's playing the same, is like reprising his role. I'm down.
If Denzel was in it as a priest, sold.
I mean,
ain't got shit on me.
If you want to get me to watch a movie about the devil, then that's how you have to do it.
But Guy Pearce has been in, like, he's been a Marvel villain. He's not my Mandarin.
Not my Mandarin.
Iron Man 3.
I think it's the only Marvel movie I haven't seen, because I could not get past the ball jokes.
Which movie is this?
Iron Man 3.
I haven't seen that one either.
Which, it's a Shane Black film. Like, it's more of a Shane Black film than a Marvel film.
Maybe I
Let's
should
just put it that way.
I love Shane Black, so maybe
I love Shane Black, and once I got past the twist, which on like that movie came out, God, that came out like 8 years ago at this point. But anyway, like Guy Pearce is in films like that. He's in films like Lawless. He's famous actor from Australia. I love the Proposition. He was in, was it Priscilla with Terrence Stamp and Hugo Weaving, I think, where they're was the like a trio of drag queens. And but like he's a really talented actor and he's never hit it big because I don't think like LA Confidential, love that
Completely
film.
different character, so different. It's awesome. He's like a slimy snake coward type character in that movie, which
Which
is so awesome.
Exley. So, and Guy Pearce is a great actor, and this film would not work if you didn't have a committed actor in this leading role that helps us connect with him. And he does. But then we also you see an anger in him in that exchange with Natalie. When, like, you see an anger when he strikes her, you're like, oh, he's capable of some things that I don't think we up to that point realized. But Guy Pearce sells it so well. And you like, I guess with the body of his work, I've seen him as cold, manipulative characters in a lot of things. And he definitely has that side at the end when he's setting Teddy up to be murdered later. And you have that, and Guy Pearce really is fantastic. And I don't like at this point, I think Guy Pearce is only going to be showing up in like The Seventh Day would have been a straight to VOD film if it wasn't COVID anyway, kind of thing, which kind of makes me upset that that's what Guy Pearce is doing right now.
Yeah.
But,
He's also in a show with Kate Winslet. I forget what it's called. Mildred. It's called Mildred Pierce, actually.
okay.
So, and I just saw like the very end of like the fifth. I gotta say, it's very risque and yeah, more on the thumbs up side. I only saw about 20 minutes, but I was like, whoa, this is different.
He was in Bloodshot with Vin Diesel last year. He was the antagonist in it. He was Ebenezer Scrooge in A Christmas Carol made by Stephen Knight.
I forgot that was him.
Yeah,
I gotta say, actually, he was good through most of it, but there were some parts where I was like, he wasn't as good as he could have been. He could have done better in that, I thought.
I do want to make a really big recommendation to anyone who hasn't seen The Rover with him and Robert Pattinson. It's a Australian outback post-apocalyptic dystopia. Very reminiscent of like Mad Max kind of thing. Like it's not quite like the world hasn't turned to like S&M, like everybody in like leather and stuff like that yet. But like
about 3 years before Mad Max.
Yeah, like maybe 3 years after the events of The Rover, we'll get up to like leather clad everybody, but not quite there yet. Like really, I want to know what happened between.
I have to mute my camera sometimes.
We don't have any water, but we got sex. And it's hard sex.
What happened between Mad Max and the Road Warrior? Don't know. I don't know where they got all the leather, but it works. So I'm gonna that. So shamelessly plug The Rover. I love dystopian films and like interesting, like Guy Pearce is at the very end of The Road. My God, that movie. That'll mess you up.
Guy Pearce was in The Road, you say? Guy Pearce was in The Road? I don't remember this at all.
He is at the very end. He's literally in one scene, which I feel like most of the supporting cast are in one scene in that film. It's that kind of film because like Viggo Mortensen and Cody Smith McPhee, I think played his son. They were in the whole film, but like they meet people throughout the film and Guy Pearce is at the very end. But anyway, does anybody have any final thoughts on Memento?
More leather in my Memento movie. No, I don't know. I'll definitely. This is one a lot of replay or rewatch value on this one for me. Yeah, just great performances and a lot of rewatch value. Definitely recommend it.
Why did Leonard wear that suit? Should have been in leather. Would have made the film better. There we go. Vinny missed this whole entire part. He's going to be so confused if we keep making leather-bound, like leather-clad references in future episodes.
That's right.
We should do it on purpose.
We must.
I'll get my jumpsuit.
Why is Popeye Doyle not in leather? Like, that's going to be the first question I ask while we talk about the French Connection in our next episode.
I'll get my jumpsuit.
But
I don't think they heard you when you said that.
So, honestly, my final thoughts are like, if you haven't seen Memento or haven't watched it in a while, go watch it with all of the things that we talked about in the back of your head. Because I feel like with different context and different focus, this film has so much rewatchability because you can see it in from so many different ways and focus on so many different things.
And it's okay it's one of those movies where, like, I would hope that no one watches it and then instead of the increasing or just like the plateauing of it being like, yeah, you're just going to you have to be okay with being confused. Like, it's not going to give you, like, this is a mystery and it's like a mystery that kind of like, just like, oh, okay. But at the end, like, I would hope that no one watches it and then gets like annoyed at like the structure of the movie and kind of like, well, where are the answers? You're just giving me more and more questions. I feel like I'm watching Lost or something. Shane, I'm not dissing. I know you like Lost. I'm not dissing it, I promise. But like, I hope that everyone that does watch it definitely gives it a chance because this movie is, wow, is this movie awesome. It is so different. Like, I can't really think, maybe we named other movies that have like weird narrative structures, but this is so different and it's never been duplicated. Like, so it was awesome. So yeah, if anyone says like, I like movies, this should definitely be on like everyone's watch list. If you say that you like movies. Yeah. Speech over. Okay.
Well said, Matt. But definitely go check out Memento. And yeah, I don't think anybody would want to try to recreate this narrative structure because one, you'd just be like, this is a ripoff of Memento. Two, I don't think a whole lot of people can make this work, to be honest. The way that Christopher Nolan was able to think all that out, and just like watching that video, just being like, wow, oh man, you're on a whole different level right now.
Very, very clever. Very clever. Very cerebral. Very well done. Yeah.
Well, these were all of our thoughts on Memento. You should tell us what you think in the comments. But from Alex, Jim, Matt, Vinny, and myself, thank you all for tuning in and always supporting the Development Hell podcast.